So I thought I'd do another segment today talking about what's going on in North Carolina because I think this is kind of an interesting story. It's more of a local story, so it doesn't impact everyone, but I think it does. It could be part of larger national trends, and what that trend is, in my opinion, is a political realignment of the country that I think has been happening for a while now. So we got this first story from NPR. A North Carolina lawmaker has switched parties, creating a path to stricter abortion laws. A Democratic North Carolina lawmaker announced on Wednesday that she was switching to the GOP, giving Republicans a veto proof majority in the state and paving a way for major legislative changes. Who is she? North Carolina State House member Tricia Cotham. Cotham's political career is preceded by a legacy of Democrats. Her mother, Pat Cotham, is a longtime Democratic member of the Mecklenburg Commission and a Democratic National Committee member, and her father, John, was a chair of the county's Democratic Party. A former public school assistant principal, Cotham, a former public school assistant principal, Cotham had previously served on the North Carolina House of Representatives from 2007 to 2016 before returning in January. Her stance on several issues has been consistent with the Democratic Party. She's previously opposed new abortion restrictions, been supportive of LGBTQ rights, and supported public education in the state. But she has also voted with the GOP recently, including a bill requiring sheriffs to cooperate with ICE officials, according to reporting from member station WFAE. What's the big deal? Early on Wednesday, Cotham announced she would switch party affiliation from Democrat to Republican, citing bullying from Democrats as one of her main motivators. The switch comes at a tipping point for North Carolina's legislature and would give the GOP 72 seats in the House, the precise number needed for a veto-proof majority. It already has the members in the Senate, meaning Republicans can enact policies over the opposition of Democratic Governor Roy Cooper. It could also precede new legislation on immigration, voting, and abortion rights that North Carolina Republicans may pursue. Last week, Cotham's absence, along two other Democrats during a vote on repealing pistol permits, allowed the GOP to push the challenge through, despite Cooper's veto drawing ire from constituents and colleagues. Various North Carolina progressive groups have expressed outrage in statements and online, calling for Cotham's resignation and alleging she misrepresented herself to her constituents. So that's the basics of the story. We have this one Democrat congresswoman, or this one Democrat person in the North Carolina legislature who's choosing to switch to the Republican Party. Now, as we've already covered in the beginning, she's heavily involved in Democratic politics. Her family is pretty much a Democrat family. But from the appearances of things, the Democrats aren't completely all there for her on all issues. So let's go to this Axios article. I think it's this one. Yeah, North Carolina Democrat expected to change parties, and one of the things that I think helped motivate her to switch would be the fact that let's Control F and find this a bit faster. So, what they're saying, Rep. Cecil Brockman, also a moderate Democrat, told the News Observer he doesn't blame Cotham. Instead, he thought the reaction from Democrats drove her to switch parties. So this was over her decision to be absent from the vote on the pistol brace thing, basically allowing the Republicans to get a new law in effect that helped free up gun laws. Basically, gun laws got lax. It's the basic essence of what happened. I think she just wanted to do what's best for her district, and when you're constantly talked about and trashed, especially the way that we've been over the past few weeks, I think this is what happens, Brockman said. So maybe he was involved with her when this happened, but basic essence of this is that, she wasn't there for the Democrats on one vote or maybe a few different votes, and she's been relentlessly. I don't want to go so far as to say bullied, because when you're in a position of political power, I don't know, bullying seems kind of an odd statement. Instead, what they've done is they've relentlessly antagonized her or insulted her, or basically said that she's not one of them, or made her feel less than or unfaithful, I guess you can say. And so she's decided to go join up with the Republicans, because I guess the Republicans in North Carolina don't do that as much to her. But I think there was another article that I read that had another reason for why they might do that. So let's see if it's this one. I think it's the NPR one. So nope, not that one. Maybe it's this one. There we go. Cotham won her seat with a 59% vote, with 59% of the vote in November to Republican opponent Tony Long's 41%. She defeated three opponents in a crowded primary. So she's from District 112 in Northeast Charlotte, It's a new district created as a result of redistricting. It leans Democrat with 61% voting for Biden in 2020. So, here's the deal. I believe somewhere they said that that her district could get redistricted in the near future, and that would essentially make it more Republican. So it could be one of two things. Number one, it could be Republicans are going to wind up owning her district and she's choosing to go with them. Or number two, she's going with the Republicans so that when they redistrict her, she'll have an easier chance of getting back into power. Honestly, I think it's more likely to be number two because here's the reality. She comes from a very Democrat family who seem to have a lot of power. She has parents on the DNC or members of the DNC. My guess would be that if she really needed the connections, then she would be able to find herself another seat and boot out a lesser Democrat for a state membership, or maybe even consider going on to Congress. I mean, this is a woman who essentially has a political career, right? All right, that's not it. This one? No, that's... Anyhow. Yeah, we're just going to go right over here. Next. Progressives win Wisconsin Supreme Court race, creating first Democrat majority in 15 years. So I want to talk about this story next, just because it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, part of the political realignment, where Wisconsin, they had the Supreme Court race, somebody lost, that was it. The Democrats essentially control it, and it's going to free up their voting laws, so they're more lax. Voter ID will be more lax, and abortion rights will become more of a thing in that state. Because again, they voted in a Democratic person for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, therefore gave it a Democrat tilt. But I'd like to talk a little bit more about now the political realignment. So, this other article from Axios, To America's Index, Red-Blue Migration. Sharers say that blank issue would most motivate them to consider leaving their state. Cost of living, by far and away, is the biggest factor. Then you get into personal reasons and family ties. Then you get into job employment, taxation issues, abortion issues, gun issues, racial issues, LGBTQ issues, education issues. Basically, the first two are more personal or individual reasons. After that, jobs and employment, there isn't really much of a shift. But when you get farther down, they increasingly get more political. And people are more likely to vote based off of those things. Or they're more likely to move based off of those things. And that's basically what this article kind of asserts when you get into it. So the big picture. Politics isn't the main reason people consider moving to another state. The biggest drivers are more likely to be economic reasons, like cost of living and jobs, or personal and family reasons, the poll found. What they're saying, for the most part, people look to be going to a safe space for them, for their ideological identity. So, here we go. The big picture. So, yeah, back in the big picture. So Black and Hispanic Americans were more likely than white Americans to say they'd been thinking of moving states. For whatever reason, I don't know why. But if people are considering a move, they're also likely to think about which states reflect their political and social values, whether through state laws or how neighbors might view the world. And so that's why I want to get into the political realignment. We're essentially getting states that are becoming more or less one way or another. So North Carolina seems like it could get more Republican in the future. Wisconsin looks like it might get more Democrat in the future based off of how these elections have worked out. And as people migrate for increasingly political reasons, that's just the driving reality that we have going on. The new red wave is already here, from the Hill. Call it a roaring red wave of the 2020s, and this time it's actually materialized, unlike during the red wave that was predicted for the 2022 midterm elections. Recent U.S. Census data underscore a grim reality for the biggest blue states. More people are leaving states such as California, New York, and Illinois than moving to them. The exodus is real. California lost 350,000 residents in 2022, while New York lost about 300,000, and Illinois saw more than 140,000 go elsewhere per census numbers. Other states, including New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania, also saw large numbers of residents say goodbye. But other states such as Florida and Texas saw large gains of population. Not coincidentally, all these southern states, except North Carolina, have Republican governors, while California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania have Democrat governors. So yeah, the states that gained, Florida, Texas, North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, all red states. So what we're seeing is shifts in migration, and we're seeing shifts in political realignment, where right now, political reasons are not the main reason for moving. But when people consider moving, politics is basically the most important decision. It's like, well, yes, I'm going to move. But I'm going to move somewhere that represents my values. And that's kind of the deal that we have going on. Going back to Axios, by the numbers. Republicans were more likely to consider moving to red states than blue states or swing states. Democrats were more likely to consider moving to blue states than red states or swing states. More than half of Republicans and Democrats said they thought about moving to a state where the government better reflects their political and policy values, while 69% said Democrats, while 69% of Democrats and 65% of Republicans considered moving to a state that's closer match with their cultural and social values. So politics and culture are increasing motivators for people to move, is what we can kind of infer from this. Overall, 38% of those who considered relocating wanted to move to red states, 34% to blue states, and 28% to swing states. And so, yeah, that's kind of what's going on. And as what we're going to see is we're going to see the ideological divisions just kind of deepen and set in. Current swing state residents thinking about moving were evenly split among moving to a blue state, red state, or another swing state. Why? Because they're swing states. They got a good mix of people, so therefore you're going to get a mix of data on that. So cost of living still the top issue, but social issues are second in that list. And I think that's kind of the takeaway that we can take from this. So North Carolina, this woman is having to do with redistricting, and she might have her district essentially turned more Republican, which would be significant. I read redistricting somewhere. I can't seem to pull it back up again though, which is kind of annoying. Not that one. Not that one. That one? Maybe? No, that's not it. I can't seem to find it. Oh well. Point remains. Woman is afraid of being redistricted out, or she could be. And, well, redistricting is going to be a factor. Whether she's trying to get it redistricted to help her win in that same seat again, or maybe not. I don't know. But that's the basic deal of what's going on. I thought this was what would be worth talking about. I thought it was kind of interesting considering what's going on. I also think it's kind of interesting she's from a Democrat family. It makes it kind of hard to really peg her down because she has a history of being in support of these Democrat issues, and she's also has big social ties to Democrats. Be interesting to see where her family lies on the spectrum, if they decide to move with her, or if it just causes a family division, or if she's basically just a weak sauce Republican, where she only votes with them sometimes, and she's just kind of out there in the ether, where she pretends to be a Republican most of the time. Really, she's more of a Democrat because Democrats have been jerks to her in the past. I don't really know. Anyhow, thanks for listening. This is, again, I make these videos because it's a hobby of mine. I like to talk about this stuff, and stay safe and have a good one. Bye.